Hey, Run Buddy, it's your friend Lisa. Have you ever wondered what HRV, VO2, VO2Max, all of those letters actually mean? I have kind of, sort of, a little bit. But today I am here with my fabulous friends, Josh and Dylan, over at Return to Sport here in Jones Valley to talk all things heart rate variability and VO2Max. And so if you're interested in learning how these, what are they called? These measurements, these statistics, this data about you can help you identify your training zones and then help you meet your goals that you have for 2026 and beyond. Stay tuned because we're going to get into it in just a moment. Greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Bib. Today, I am here with my fabulous friends, Josh and Dylan, over at Return to Sport here in Jones Valley to talk all things heart rate variability and VO2Max. All right. Welcome, Josh and Dylan, to Behind the Bib.
Thanks for having us back.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so last year you came on and we talked a little bit about the sweat test and we kind of did that. And that actually really helped with my my summer training last year because I was like, dude, I don't have enough salt in my system. And even when I did the Every Woman's Marathon in November, I was like trying to remember the things. I was like, do the things, do the salt. And then I get in there and I didn't do them. Mile 20, serious major cramps, kind of pushed through, got some pickle juice, got some salt at the next thing. And I was like, that was it. It was the salt. And so I'm back today to talk to you about what HRV is, what VO2Max is. And I'll tell you how this came about. I was at Fitness 300. Shout out to Fitness 300. I was at the the Strength for Runners class the other day, and they were just, we're just warming up and laying down and all that kind of stuff. And the folks were like, we just got to talking as we do, and they're like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what. I hear Suzanne and Dylan say, yeah, my HRV is this and my HRV is that. Nobody knows what that means. Nobody knows. Like our watches have it on it. Nobody knows what it means. Nobody knows how it can help us. Least of all me. Or most of all me. And so that's why I'm here today, is so we can talk a little bit about it and maybe I can learn and maybe we can help other people learn as well.
Absolutely.
Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay. So do you want to start? First, let's start with a couple of introductions, who you are and what your role is here and where we're at.
Yeah. So I'm Josh. I'm a staff PT here. Been a runner for most of my life. So we obviously treat a lot of runners here. So it's been fun. We can do a lot of these specialty type testing. We can help out a lot of runners to keep them on the road and on the trails. It's been good. Yeah.
Okay. Nice to meet you, Josh.
All right. And I'm Dylan Glass. I am the owner and PT also at Return to Sport here. I've been a long time runner as well. And we've just been focused on trying to dial it in and get faster and better and help our patients do the same thing. So It's been a very fun journey and hope we can continue to help the runners here.
And I think you will. Like, I know a lot of people that come here, and even my running buddy who's currently injured. We'll get into that on another episode, but you guys are helping her hopefully get back before a real summer training hits in. Let's get started with, what do you want to hit first? VO2Max, heart rate variability. Does one help explain the other?
I would say they're separate because HRV can be affected by other things than cardio in general. And then VO2 is more specific to cardio and how that's going to help you improve your overall health. HRV is more of an indicator that we use for certain things.
Tell me about that. What do you mean, like an indicator for certain things?
So HRV is basically the measure of variability between heartbeats. And what it shows us is that if it's lower than the scale that it is typically at for a person, you may be at risk of getting hurt or becoming sick or having problems, right? And if it's a little bit high and out of your norm, you may be at risk for some certain things as well. But we generally have a range that we follow, and it's like our average.
Okay.
Low is not good. High is not good. The middle of your average is actually where you want to be. So you want to be balanced. It's more about balance than it is about achieving a score.
Okay. Didn't know that. So there's a range that you want to stay in for heart rate variability.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that range is very dependent on the person. So like when we get to VO2 next, like there are definitely like a sliding scale that you're going to be in. The same as for heart rate variability. Like you can have two runners that have very identical times of paces. Me and Dylan are pretty close, but our HRV is very different. I'm pretty high. So we'll talk more about numbers, but like mine's around 70 to 80. And that's in milliseconds. So we look at like a fraction of a second, essentially variability. And then Dylan,
30 to 40.
30 to 40. Now, if we look at like,
That's
pretty stark difference.
Okay, that's a big difference to me. I don't know the range, but that seems like a lot.
So again, it's like higher is better overall, but the bigger predictor is going to be consistency within a range that you stay in.
Oh, so you don't have a lot of swings.
Yes, ideally.
Right? Okay.
And then variables that go into those can be literally anything. So big ones, I think the number one variable is going to be alcohol. Alcohol intake will always drop your HRV, always. And so that's an easy one that you can look at. If you go out and have a couple of drinks, you're going to have, if you look at HRV the next morning, it's going to be low. Guaranteed. Rest, sleep's the other big one. If you're consistently getting too little sleep, your HRV will start to trend downwards.
Does it have anything to do with like your cortisol levels, like your stress response levels and stuff like that?
I would say definitely yes, in a way, but in the way that inflammation affects the body as a whole versus being specific to cortisol. I would say if you're more inflamed for any reason, it's going to cause the HRV to tank, right? It's going to cause the problems with the HRV then. Cortisol, is one factor I think that probably would drive it. But think about it as a system. If you have any inflammation, whether it's from a long run or it's from eating a bad diet or it's from bad sleep, all of those factors of inflammation are what's going to cause it to start to tank or have problems.
So if my my HRV, heart rate variability is low, how would that affect my running? Do I just not feel good on my run? Do I not have as much power? I can't breathe as good? How does it show up in like a normal person?
Yeah, so if I'm ever below the baseline, I usually just feel more tired. I feel like I've been overtraining or I feel like I haven't had enough sleep. Power output is probably something that's going to be limited. And then your heart rates may be actually a little bit higher than they should be too for the workouts. So you might notice your easy run pace, instead of it being 148, might be 155 or something. Okay. And so that's going to tell you, I'm not exactly in perfect condition right now.
Okay. I'm hearing you. All right, sweet. So that's heart rate variability. But what we're doing today is we're testing VO2Max, right? And so you said that they're really two separate things. So what is VO2Max then? And how does that show up in our runs and our training?
So VO2Max is kind of our gold standard cardiac performance measure. And so we look at it from a perspective of what it stands for. V meaning volume of oxygen, so VO2, and then max is going to be the highest point of that. So when we breathe, we call it respiration, and then we actually have this idea of how does the oxygen get into our system. So that is where this number comes into play. So people that have a higher VO2, their body can pull more oxygen into your blood and actually use it. And so that's where the standardization comes into our testing. So if you look at your watch and it gives you a predictor of your VO2, it's based on your performance measures, not the actual data going in and coming out. So we'll use this guy here and actually get a direct number, which is
Lisa tries to not freak out as she sees the mast. It's okay.
It's a little obstructive. So as you're breathing in oxygen and carbon dioxide, and ideally we're putting back out more carbon dioxide than oxygen because our body's using that, it gives us an idea of what those numbers end up being and how we can use that for data.
So when you say use it for data, that means like it gives you, without me having to guess what is threshold pace or what is easy pace or what is zone 2 running. If you've got if you do zone 2, zone 3, so it gives you that kind of stuff. They're fighting over the mic. It's okay.
This is where we nerd out.
Okay, who wants it?
I'll start and then I'll let Dylan kind of go from there. So if we get into a lot of specifics, which I'm sure we will a little bit, we try not to go too sciencey, but we have numbers that we can use in our training. We have lactate threshold. We have LT1, LT2.
Okay, you're going to have to slow that down. We have lactate threshold because these are new terms to me.
Yeah.
Like I've read them, but I don't know the things. Okay, we have lactate threshold and then we have what?
Lactate threshold 1, lactate threshold 2.
Okay.
So there's two numbers, and it's different levels, and we can correlate those with heart rate values, but also performance measures. If VO2 is going to be purely an oxygen-based system, so how much oxygen is coming in, how much of it's getting used. Lactate is the byproduct of metabolism within the muscles. When we think about, you get that lactate burn in a sense. There's some variability there in terms of some thought processes. But essentially, these numbers are guides to know how effective your body is at performing at a certain expenditure. Okay. So we have a level that is aerobic. Most people probably understand like there's aerobic and anaerobic workouts. Aerobic is this level of I can run and I can stay at this pace for a long time. So LT1 is like our all-day pace. So your heart rate's not too high. So your body's not really using a ton of expenditure, and it can sustain steady state. So marathon pace, maybe a little bit faster, and then obviously a little slower for beyond that. LT2 starts to get into anaerobic. Anaerobic meaning without oxygen. That's fast stuff. That's going to be that 1 hour or less, kind of that 10K to half marathon kind of pace, where your body's working really hard, but you're going to hit a wall, and you're going to hit a wall fairly quickly in a sense. And so that's going to be our LT number, and we can correlate these with heart rate data. So that's where we can kind of connect some dots. And then beyond that, well into anaerobic is think about sprinting. That's going to be VO2, which is going to be some of those levels of like your body has reached its max ability to get beyond that. So heart rate max is there. And then we have this idea of we have ran out of potential, like your body's done and it's going to start to collapse.
Yeah. And that's what we're testing today.
Yes, we're going to figure out all these values.
Hands start to sweat. It's going to be okay. All right. And so and this is helpful not just for elite athletes, but like for me, I've already, I talked to you, my goal for 2026 is to run a 5K under 30 minutes, right? And so I think that is pretty average, right? Like that's a popular goal. I talked to a lot of people yesterday, actually. They were like, in 2026, I'd love to break 30 minutes. And I was like, me too, And so those numbers help me train in different ways so that I have a better shot at making that goal, at achieving that goal.
Yeah.
Is that why it happens?
So we can think about it when we do a sweat test. Why do we do a sweat test? We want to take out guessing games. We want to know what your sweat rate was, your sodium rate was.
Yeah.
Similar to the VO2 stuff. You can go out and run and have no data and just go run and go by feel and go by, vibes, whatever you want to do. And you can be really successful at that.
That's fun.
It is fun. And I think a lot of running should be that way. But sometimes we want to really take an edge, and we have the capability of doing so by just doing a little bit of math, essentially, is what it comes down to. And it gives us better ideas of what our aerobic thresholds are, what our anaerobic thresholds are, so we can set guidelines for your runs. Me and Dylan talk about it when we look at like ultras right now. Like when we are trying to figure out what pace can I run 100K at, I got to figure out what my numbers are because I need my heart rate to stay pretty steady based on those numbers. Because if we go too high into LT2, we're going to start to collapse. And then that's when people crash and burn in the big long races. For 5K, for you, we're well into that LT2 range, a little bit anaerobic. But if we figure out what your values are that you can train at, you can teach your body on how to perform at that level, but also we can stay at a sustainable level where your body can truly flush lactate and buffer lactate, which is going to be that product that makes your muscles want to burn and stop running. So by figuring out what your variables are and your numbers are, we can train better, more efficiently, get better quality out of our sessions instead of just going out and just seeing what happens. Yeah. Because that can lead to a lot of just burnout in a sense of just like poor quality workouts. And then how we talk to HRV, if you're overtraining, what happens? Your HRV tanks. And then you just have this negative feedback cycle of poor quality. So we put the math in and we just get better outcomes.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have anything else?
Yeah. And also on top of that, if you're looking at the top end stuff, that's super helpful to help you stay in that threshold zone so that you don't do too much too quick and you can spend more time at threshold. That's going to make you faster and more efficient, like you said, at clearing the lactate, but also staying below LT1 is going to be helpful. That's that aerobic zone that we talk about for easy running. So if you're getting to where all of your runs are staying in zone 3 to zone 4, that's like a scary zone because you don't get to recover really. Right. And so if you can bring your easy running down to be actually in zone 2 or lower, that's going to be the LT1 threshold.
Okay.
And so most of us get caught in that trap of going just a little bit too high where there's 10 to 15 beats per minute. It doesn't matter. That's enough to where you're not necessarily going to be recovering or have the ability to do the work when you get to the workout.
Okay. All right. That actually makes sense to me then. So that's why this test is important. So what's the difference between this test then? I know you went over a little bit, and I've got the memory of a goldfish. That's why I record everything. So what's the difference between this test and like what my watch tells me then? Because my watch has an idea of what my VO2 max and my heart rate variability is.
Right. So as he was saying, basically the watch is looking at your performance and that's it to give you recommendations on this stuff. Garmin's and Coros, I'm not going to be against just one.
Yeah.
They all are not very good at setting actual heart rate zones. The wrist-based watches don't actually read heart rate as well as they should anyways. So it's best to have an armband or a chest strap if you're looking to get a little bit more into it, a little bit more accurate. But even with those, the Garmin's and the Coros and whoever else, they don't look at your data like we're looking at it to see like, all right, where is the LT1, where's LT2? They're just going based off your heart rate max and doing percentages, which is great for textbooks, but it's not great for real people. So it kind of doesn't work so well.
Okay. All right. So you really kind of need the test in order to specifically identify your zones that are real, like your zones are real.
Right.
Do they change? Like as you age or as you get more fit or you gain aerobic fitness or anything like that, do you expect the numbers to change?
Yeah, so they are something that they're kind of always changing, even from person to person, day to day, they can change a little bit. As you get more fit, they're definitely going to shift in a direction that expands your zones a little bit. And as you get older, they're going to shift in a way that brings down, your heart rate max is probably going to come down as you age, which means your zones are going to kind of shift downwards. And that's normal and something that we still want to try to mitigate to a degree. We still want to have a really good high VO2 max for your age. And as long as you're training in these ways, you're still going to do that, but you still might see that number slowly come down.
Okay. All right. I've heard that VO2 max is like one of the number one ways for longevity, right? To understand longevity. Do you know anything about that research or can you explain it at all? Like why does VO2 max mean that, like a good VO2 max mean that I'm going to live a longer, happier, I don't know about happier, but like, age better? I don't know if that's the right term.
I think it really comes down just like the overall heart health. I think it's the best predictor of where you stand from a cardiovascular standpoint. And we can link cardiovascular health to literally every system in the body. So it's a very consistent number. I mean, we can do other things like cardiac output, which is what they do when they do like heart tests, like stress testing. They're looking for your ability to perfuse and actually pump blood, which is more of an internal number. But your VO2 max is how efficient is your body at actually utilizing what it's taking in from an oxygen standpoint. So it just kind of sets a standard. And we do know, and like in older adults, I think every decade, after your third decade, it goes down 5 to 10%. And so there's a lot of people who talk about like, there is a window where we really need to get our VO2 max really high. And that's why being active in your younger years, 20s, 30s, 40s is important because you can set a standard for your body to be at and you will have a less of a decline because you can control that number. Just like you think about other variables being like muscle mass and, we look at the cross section of a triathlete at 70 versus, a sedentary adult is significant. So VO2 max is similar. If you have a high starting point and you consistently train at it at some level, which we'll talk about, but you have a better standpoint of what your overall health is going to look like.
So in my 30s, which I'm well past, by the way, in my 30s, if I were to have what's the range of VO2 max? Like 0 to 120, 160, I don't know the numbers.
Yeah, I don't have them off the top of my head, but like average adults that are somewhat active or even sedentary are going to be like 20 to 30 to 40 maybe at the most. And then active adults that are not on the high level are going to be that 30 to like 50 range, and then 50 up as we start getting into the higher level.
So like people would like 100 would be unheard of, right? Or like a really world class
top 0.001%.
So but what I heard you say was in my 30s or so, if I can get my VO2 max as high as I can get it, and I lose 5 to 10% per year after that, like I'm starting at a better VO2 max. So even if I'm 70, as long as I'm like continue to train somewhat, with that decline every decade, I'm still better than if I never did it at all, right? Like I still have a better VO2 max and a better, cardiac health than if I had never done it, right? So you're starting with more in the bank, essentially. And so you can make, you make automatic withdrawals every decade. Like you pay for like the subscription fee. The subscription for staying alive is 5 to 10%. And then you pay that 5 to 10% subscription fee every decade. And then you're just trying to keep it like, okay, my brain has got it now. All right, subscription fee. Got it. All right. So are there any questions that so I just walked in here and I didn't, come up with a whole list of questions like I normally do because you guys are experts. And so you know more about this stuff than I would even know to ask. Are there any questions that I haven't asked you yet?
A lot of the time we'll get people interested in doing it, but they're also going to ask, okay, so I did the test. What do I do with it now? So how do I extrapolate the data into my training and use it? And then do I retest? What do I need to do going forward? Stuff like that.
Thanks for getting that. Yeah. Okay. So how often do I need to retest? And with the data that you're going to collect, especially for me today, how would my coach use it to identify the training bands that I should be in, right? How do you do that?
So there's some good data that shows us that we can make pretty significant gains within 6 months. So if that is a target focus for somebody to do a VO2Max test, get a number, get their heart rate data, and go train, we can retest in 6 months and have a pretty good idea of what kind of projection we can have with it. Short to mid long, in terms of those goals. So we can definitely retest. In that perspective, it can be longer for sure, but it's a way to see, one, am I going upward? Is what I'm doing actually effective, or do I need to dial it in differently? And so again, there's definitely a up or down difference in terms of age, how those play into it, and how much you're actually going about training it. And which we could talk about soon too, is how do you train it?
Yeah, I was going to ask that. What am I going to be, not just for the test, but I want you to explain that too. But then, how do I train for the VO2Max to increase or to get better?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to be doing?
Yeah. So I guess the first thing, we talked about, what do you get out of the test? Yes, you can look at your watch and say, okay, my VO2 is 52. Okay, well, what does that mean? But more so, it's going to be knowing what the LT1 is, what the LT2 is, what your heart rate zones are, and that's the data we can use to figure out training plans. So these are the zones. If I'm going to go do a track workout and I want to set pace goals, we can do pace goals, but we need to make sure your heart rate is in those pace goals. Okay. We can have a range, and you can do that with a VDOT, which is a really common tool a lot of runners use. Yeah. You plug in a recent 5K time, you plug in a recent 10K time, and it spits out time. Then it's usually your paces are these things. But again, there's no heart rate data attached to any of that. So it's how specific do you want to be with your training, and are you going to use your heart rate data in correlation with your speed and your running data that you've had recently to connect those dots to have the most effective way of going about it. So that's what you get out of the test, is all the numbers that we can attach it and give you a plan.
When I'm training, do I vary the training between different types of workouts in order to increase my VO2Max? How do I increase the number? What am I going to be doing?
Yeah. So we kind of differentiate most of our training plans between easy miles, which is going to be that, zone 2 kind of training. And then a small portion of our workout should be within either LT1 or LT2. And so some of the gold standards for training VO2Max are split tempos. So somewhere in the range of 3 to 5 minutes at your LT2 pace. And then going into even faster than that, fartleks are really common, are a really big one, getting to the upper threshold. So between your LT2, which is that 45 minutes to an hour pace, and your VO2, which is probably which is going to be 85 to 90%, maybe a touch beyond that, of your heart rate max, which is your 5K pace or faster. And so a lot of people, we think about the 5K being hard. It is hard, but it's hard because we are truly redlining, and we're trying to stay above, just below that red line perhaps without blowing up. And so we can use those type workouts to better get into those zones.
Yeah, I realized this past weekend that my redlining is in my head. Because I went back and I looked at my heart rate and I was like, you didn't do that. You were fine. You thought you were dying, but you were fine. Yeah, you were actually okay. And that'll be interesting coming out of this to really get some numbers dialed in. That'll be really good.
I recently heard, I was telling Dylan this the other day, I saw an Instagram reel. It was, I can't remember which one it was, one of the big gurus of running. But he's talking about 5K pace itself is not the most specific thing for us to train in. And his was the same rationale for what we're talking about. It's 2 in the middle. We have this zone 2 cardio aerobic workouts. And then we have this anaerobic, this LT2, which is ideally a little faster than our 5K. And so it's like, in his thought process, if we think about it from that perspective, why would we train at that middle ground when it really doesn't hit your aerobic workouts? It really doesn't do much for your faster high end stuff. So it's this like middle ground where it's just a little bit of wasted training, and it tires you out and it beats you up. So we think about like, how much time do we spend in that higher zone? Like if you do one track workout a week and you're doing, let's say, 6 rounds of 600 or, 10 400s, like overall volume of that compared to like a 50-mile training week for a marathoner, maybe. Again,
10,
there's some variability with there for sure on reps, but
I started sweating just like thinking about that. Oh my God. Okay, sorry.
No, you're good.
I drove you off a cliff there.
But that LT2 VO2Max workout ends up only being probably 8 to 10% of your weekly volume. It's not much, and so we had to spend a lot of time in that aerobic zone, that zone 2, maybe bottom of zone 3, depending on the person's ability. And we talk about buffering level. If you know what your LT1 is, you might go a little bit above your zone 2, and that's okay, but you're still below your tolerance level for an all-day run. There's variability from person to person. So figuring out those numbers allows us to figure out what our workouts need to be, because if we don't want to waste our workouts. Like, you don't want to go out and do something and not really gain anything from it.
True statement.
I mean, like I said, sometimes we end up spending too much time in that little window, like that zone 3 to 4, and just wasted time. Like, sure, you're gaining some benefit of being out and, some fitness, but if it's not really helping your cardiovascular system in the way you want it to, it's lost opportunity in a sense.
True.
So why would you not want to be specific, get the best quality you can, to actually see the gains you want to see in your races? I mean, some people run for fun. Most of us train because we want to have because we're crazy and we want to.
It's okay to run for.
Fun's different from person to person. But how many people do you know that don't do 5Ks or 10Ks or half marathons? Like, they just go run. Not many. There's usually a goal.
True statement.
There's usually a goal. I know a couple of people that just run. I'm like, you sign up for a race? Like,
no.
I'm like, why?
Why would you? Yeah.
So.
Okay. I got you. Okay. Yeah. So is there anything else that I haven't asked?
I don't believe so. But if there are, I'm sure we'll cover it when you're on the treadmill.
Fantastic. All right. So I guess if there's nothing else, I guess it's time for me to get a little uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be great.
It's going to be great. You can do fine.
All right. Well, we will see you on the other side of that mask.
The brain's weird. Man. Your heart rate would start off higher, though, because you're amped up. So you would hit your heart rate max quicker. So your performance probably would go downhill, but does the mental piece of running overweigh that?
But there are many studies that show that the mind stops before the body does. So, an interesting test.
Great book. How bad do you want it?
Yeah. What's that, 70 hours? What's that movie or whatever? Where he's like, it's gone.
Oh, man.
You know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. Dave Franco. Not Dave Franco. What's the other? The other Franco.
The brother.
The other brother.
24 hours?
No. 72 hours?
72 hours. Thank you.
What's 3 days? Yeah.
Yeah, it's 3 days. You're doing great.
Heart rate's looking pretty. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. This number will put us at 10 minutes, so we're within a good range. I think he got a little bit left in the tank, so we're going to try a little bit further, but you tell me when, okay?
Got it, girl.
We're about to go under 8-minute pace.
You got it.
7:30. Let's get through a minute here. You good?
You got it. Hang in there. Yes, you can. And my God, you do hard things.
You need to stop? Okay.
She done. Yes. Perfect. Good job.
Well done.
That's awesome.
All right, we just got to walk.
Like, I don't know. Yes, walk. Yes, walk. Yes. Yes.
All right. Hi. I survived.
You did.
I mostly survived. Okay, so we just recorded I'm having trouble to even remember. Okay, the VO2Max test that I did on the treadmill just a few minutes ago. So I cooled down, I'm not sweating as much, I can get my breath back and like actually talk to you now about what just went down and like what results are that somebody might look at, and then also have a couple other questions in terms of just how somebody, like when they're starting their running journey, when they would do something like this, and then how does my my nutrition affected and things like that. So which one do you want to go over first? What I did, or
let's see what you did.
All right, what did I do?
So you can share these later if you want.
Okay,
this is your data, if you're comfortable with that. So what we'll look at
that
first,
out there for the world.
The number that we're obviously looking for is the VO2Max.
Okay.
So your VO2Max is at 38.
38.
So I'll show you what that looks like.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, so again, it's kind of a number, and we do have a scale here, and it kind of puts you into a category. So you actually did quite well. So we look at this from like a perspective, like biologic age is a big thing that people talk about now.
Okay.
So that puts you at 39.
Okay, because I'm a ripe old age of 47, so that's just a little bit younger than my actual chronological age. Okay.
And if we look at it from the sliding scale of this kind of age to VO2 Max ramp, actually puts you in the excellent category. So quite good.
That was not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
Not at all. Wait, did y'all make that up to just like, so I would be like, go get it, you know? Like,
Now, there are a few things we need to work on.
He's like, don't get excited just yet.
But no, it is really good. So your body does really well at managing oxygen flow. So that actually shows us that you probably have a higher peak, perhaps, in your performance than you think you do. And like we've talked about that from an athlete perspective of like our goals of getting sub 30, our goals for doing some big lofty stuff. There's definitely potential there, and you have a nice window to use. So now we use that VO2 max to kind of get an idea of what your zones are. But we can also look at your fat max. So one thing we did notice right off the bat for you is that you burn carbohydrates a lot, and you don't burn a whole lot of fat. And so I kind of mentioned to you when we were on the treadmill, like there was a flat line after like 7 minutes where like it just went straight down and you were only burning carbohydrates. So which was pretty common. Like, that's why zone 2 is so popular. We burn fat really well in that lower heart rate zone. That's why zone 2 training is popular for people that aren't really looking for performance. They're looking for weight loss. Zone 2. Your body sits in this category.
Long, slow, easy.
Long, slow, easy, where you burn more fat than carbohydrates. So that's what we want to burn. If you're just burning carbohydrates, it's really only whatever your fuel you have. Like that's the glycogen you're saying. That's the food. That's the gels we're eating. That's why we do a lot of gels. If we're not burning a whole lot of fat, we're not really going to see weight loss in terms of running. That's why people can run.
Well, that explains a whole heck of a lot.
They're only losing the fuel they put in their system, not the body weight.
Okay.
So you are a high carb burner, and so your fat max in terms of this representation is kind of around the 100 heart rate zone. So anything beyond that, you're going to start creeping up into higher percentages of carbohydrate loss.
That's like a walk.
Yeah, that's why walking's popular too. But for some people, it's a little lower. So like I said, for you, we did find that there is a little bit more of a ramp where you're not metabolically efficient at burning different fuels. And so that might be a conversation that can be a little tricky sometimes to figure out what works best for you and how do we get your body better at utilizing different fuel systems. Carbohydrates versus fat. We see that, and it's interesting in like the trail world, there are a lot of European athletes that use oil as a part of their So Killian Jornet is a big one. I feel like people have heard of him. He drinks olive oil when he's doing ultras because his body's really metabolically efficient at burning fats.
Wow. And so that gives him energy?
Gives him energy.
The oil?
Gives him fuel.
I'm exactly opposite.
You need to be eating donuts.
Coach Josh said.
So interesting enough, so we get that as that fat max, which is that 95 to 100 range probably for you of where you're burning fat mostly.
Holy cow, that really is like a walk for me.
Yeah, very low heart rate. So we'll use ventilatory threshold, which is its VT1 and VT2, but they're pretty close, and so we'll actually take away that number a little bit, increase it a bit. So your VT2, which is going to be a pretty close approximation of your lactate 2, is going to be 157. Your heart rate max today hit 165. And so I was looking actually back at
Really?
your 5K
it
effort.
felt like so much more than that.
Yeah.
It really did.
You're working. So there's this idea too of when we're doing a test like this, which is a stage test, that what's going to hit the point first? Is it your heart rate max or is it going to be your mechanical load? And that's a big thing we have to work on with athletes is are you hitting more cardio demand or are you hitting more physical demand?
You asked me that,
Biomechanics.
and I was like, I don't know.
And I was trying to kind of push you towards like, if you feel like it's your lungs and your breathing, don't stop. Let your
Okay.
body fail before your lungs do.
Yeah.
Because I want that heart rate to hit as close to that max as I can. And your body's getting tired, but you can push through some physical demand.
Yeah.
That's that last little bit of a 5K where you're like, my legs are burning, my body's hurting, but I can go a little bit farther.
Yeah.
And so that's why we try to push that true heart rate max. So I look back at your 5K effort you did last week, and you did peak around 165. There was one little spike at 170, so there might be a little variability there. But this puts our heart rate max at around 165 for you. And
Okay.
there may be a little give based on the type of run you're doing. And so we can use that number then to create your zones. And between this and your VT, or a close approximation to your LT we talked about, being 155 to 157, it's about 10 beats off or so of that heart rate max. So that is where we're going to be when you're kind of that redlining on hard workouts, hard efforts.
Okay, so now I know like what I need to get to. Okay.
Yep. And then so we can correlate this. So that puts you at your zone 1 being around 117 or lower. So
Okay,
it's pretty
which
low.
is-
Zones we don't spend a lot of time in zone 1. We really don't.
I would say that's the walking.
Walking.
It is.
Zone 2 is going to be about 117 to 137 for you, which is, like I said, a comfortable effort. It's hard to stay that low sometimes. And again, that's what we're trying to train. We're trying to kind of narrow some of those windows and see where we can get you to.
Okay.
Zone 3 for you is 138 to 146. Zone 4 is 147 to 157, which is going to hit that VT2.
Okay.
And then zone 5 is all out. It's going to be your VT2 or LT2, kind of a close approximation there, to your heart rate max. That's zone 5.
Okay. And zone 5 is like finishing the 5K, the last little bit in the tank, or like the last reps that you've got in on the hard workouts. Like that's where you should be hitting those kind of numbers.
Yeah. We don't want to sit in zone 5 very often.
Okay. All right. That's the like all out.
Yep.
You don't have anything left.
Yeah, maybe, and some people do like, if you're doing HIIT training or like really high intensity, you're going to burn out pretty quick if you sit in zone 5 very often.
Yeah.
You might be able to do it for 30 seconds to a minute if you're doing like 100-meter repeats, those kind of things.
Yeah.
But unless you're working track specific stuff, you're not going to sit in zone 5 too often.
Okay. All right. Sweet. That is fantastic. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. The test it wasn't easy, but it wasn't so hard that I couldn't do it, right? It was, and I had cheerleaders here, and y'all don't see the people behind the camera, but there were cheerleaders here to like help me through it, talk about hair bands and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And okay, and so now what we can do is we can go plug this into like my training plans, and so that I have actual targets and not guesses.
Yep, exactly.
On like just what this feels like to me, as opposed to what the data actually says that I should be training at.
And I mean, it's good, like I said, we joked about going by vibes, but there's definitely an influence of how you feel on the day. Like we talked about HRV, some days are going to be worse, some days are going to be better. So we have a guideline, and sometimes we give you heart rate ranges, like we want to sit within a range.
Yeah.
And we can use that data to kind of figure out where am I sitting today, how am I feeling today on this workout, to have a better guidance in that system.
Okay, sweet. When somebody first starts, when should they start thinking about doing something like this?
Yeah.
Like do my couch to 5K and then go do VO2Max testing? Like what do you recommend?
It's person to person. There is an advantage to be able to do the test and know exactly where I'm at right now. But it is a difficult test, and if we don't have a solid framework to build upon, you may not get the best data.
Okay.
You have to be able to push yourself for 12 minutes. You can do this in other ways. So like we have individuals that aren't runners. You can do it on an air bike. You can do it on a rower. So there are some ways you can do it that it's not running specific to get a good measure of your heart rate data.
Yeah.
And so there's that aspect of it. And so we do maybe start with where you're at. We did an intermediate. That's why it got you pretty hard at the end. There's scales. Like there's a novice one, which would probably end up being walking for most of the entire time.
Oh, okay.
And so we can play with it based on what your capabilities are. There are ones that we run out of speed on the treadmill, and the next level up is just to increase the incline every minute. So for the high-end athletes that can run a 5-minute pace pretty
Yeah.
consistently for a few minutes,
Yeah.
we actually had to increase their elevation profile every minute.
Yeah,
So
that makes
it is
sense.
a big scale of very, very new to running. You might only be walking, you might be able to jog a little bit by the end, to like you're maxing out this test. You have an upper level, probably 60 to 70s. You know, VO2. So
Yeah.
we can find it for anybody. So there's and you know, again, you can the beginning to have just a standard baseline, know where I'm at, what my goal is going to be, or we can say let's get a few months in of consistent running. If you want to do a running based test, and you can get to where you could run a little bit. Here's your baseline here, and now we're going to build upon that. So it's
Yeah.
person to person.
Okay. All right. Good deal. And what can I, like, are there elements of my nutrition or my hydration or anything that changes this, or that I should consider, or that can influence it?
Maybe not
Or-
necessarily your VO2 number. We do recommend if you're going to come in for a test that you come in on a day where you are feeling fresh. You're hydrated. You're not coming in off of a busy day at work, or you've already done a workout. Like there's some
Okay, got it.
nuance and maybe some common sense to it certainly, but those variables shouldn't play too much into the performance of the actual number.
Okay. All right. Good deal. All right. So I'll ask you again, like that I asked Dylan earlier. Is there any questions that I'm not asking that I don't know to ask at this point?
I think we covered a good bit today.
Yeah, I do too. I learned a whole heck of a lot. And so just from, laying in the floor stretching after the workout that Jazz Hands Terry gave us at Fitness 300, and just talking about what heart rate variability is, to like actually recording here with you guys today and then doing the test. That's been incredible. And I know I have learned a lot, and I'm hoping that the folks that are out there watching and probably listening actually, have learned a lot as well. So with that, I will say thank you so much for coming on Behind the Bib. Rather, I've got to come to your location today and teaching us all about what HRV and VO2Max. And not only can we spell it now, we can tell you what it is.
Perfect.
All right. As always, thank you all for joining us on Behind the Bib. Whether you are first or if you're last or somewhere in between, we'll see you next time. We're Behind the Bib. Y'all take care. Bye-bye.
So nervous.
Okay.
Flipping on the news.
All right. Am I good? Yeah. Am I good? Oh, no glasses.
Ron Burgundy.
Did you touch my drum set?
Sexy.
And I'm like sweating through my shirt.
The face.